Indeed, this is the Talk with Tariro. Hello and welcome. We are still continuing with our celebrations of Women's Month, profiling women who are making a difference in our communities. We're starting it on a gospel note, and that's surprising coming from Hope.
Yes.
Hope Wembira.
Yes.
Hope Wembira Zekivanu.
Yes.
And she's singing gospel. We have on the show Hope Masike. I'm sure she's not new to many of our viewers. We are going to hear more in terms of who exactly is Hope. And we are celebrating her as well, the same way that we celebrated other women last 2 weeks. And indeed, like what we said, this show is coming to us where we are in partnership and with support from Net One, Your World in One. Thank you so much for supporting us, making sure that we bring voices of women who are making a difference. Hope, welcome to the Talk with Tariro.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Maybe let's start off by knowing who is Hope Masike. Hope Masike ndiani?
Hope Masike is a daughter of Zimbabwe, proudly Zimbabwean, proudly carrying the culture of Zimbabwe. Hope Masike is a daughter to a wonderful father, and I have 7 siblings and many nieces and nephews. Hope Masike is a lover of God and a lover of art and anything African.
How are you preserving the African culture?
Oh, in many ways. Among many things, there's the instrument that I carry,
yes,
which is like the roots of Zimbabwean music. Among
yes,
other Zimbabwean traditional instruments, the mbira is one of the top ones. And it carries the history of Zimbabwe. The history of mbira basically follows the history of Zimbabwe also.
How? Explain to us.
For instance, I can explain the history of mbira by giving exactly the colonial eras. So pre-colonization, mbira was our beloved mbira. We would worship with mbira. We would celebrate with mbira and our drums and dancing to mbakumba chinyambera.
Yes.
And then colonization came. And there are people who say if you want to weaken a people, you start from the roots, you start from their culture. That's exactly what happened with colonization. So there was a time you could be imprisoned for playing mbira. A lot of our ancient mbiras were burned. A lot of attacks happened to our culture in efforts to weaken us as a people. And then mbira was demonized as Christianity came on the picture. And up to now, some people do not want to see mbira. They still demonize it. They consider it pagan. And then slowly, as we started regaining our strength and the second liberation struggle was gaining momentum, the mbira was also coming back. And then we got independence and the mbira is back. Maybe not 100%, but it's back. Yeah.
I'm actually quite, I've got good goosebumps the way you're explaining it, how mbira, even from colonization to where we are now.
Yeah.
And one misconception that people have, Hope, is to say mbira ndedze mashavi. And you started by singing gospel.
A gospel song.
Yes.
Mbira, yeah. That is one of the things I try to do with mbira in efforts to but one of the ways to look after it is to give it a longer life, a longer lease. And that happens when you also include it in our culture.
Yes.
There's the traditional culture, what we were before, what we call our tradition, but there's the current culture also. Mbira should also move with all those eras. So it's very nice when you bring gospel into mbira, it's moving with the times. You play a jazz standard on mbira, it's moving with the times. Let's hear it in Zim dance hall and all that. It moves with the time because it's our roots. It's nice to have it everywhere as our base.
So your musical career, how did it start?
My music career started sometime when I was in music school at Zimbabwe College of Music, and
I hope it can start at the Zimbabwe College of Music. You had gone there, it had already started.
It had already kind of, but professionally.
Okay.
So I'll start from when it starts professionally and then I'll go back.
Yes.
So professionally, when I was at Zimbabwe College of Music, we were already starting our little bands in class. You know, when you're studying music, that's what you do. And one of these days, you know how Shona says,
Yes.
Chiwoniso left the country and went to stay in the States for, I think, 2.5 years, which was catastrophic. But because of that, the book cafe, back then we had the book cafe, they phoned me and they were like, would you like to play on Tuesday nights when Chiwoniso used to play? Huge shoes, these big shoes to fit into. So I started very slowly without an audience, and then slowly it was building up until I had a following while I was at, that was the start of my professional career. But of course, if you ask me when I started singing, well, I'd probably say the day I was born, and then I'll tell you fabricated stories like, oh, the doctor says, I started singing. I've been singing all my life, and I'm fortunate because in my family, everyone has a nice voice. So we used to sing a lot in the evening, a lot of these hymns in the evening as a family. Yeah, the singing started a long time ago. And
yes.
it was always clear that my gifting was art. Art and anything to do with art.
We'll hear more around the art side of it and more still around the music side of it. Join us after this short break. Welcome back as we continue with our celebrations. And this week we are celebrating one of Zimbabwe's iconic musical genius. Hey, she's part of our living heroes. That's Hope Masike. I didn't ask you. You know, I was your backing vocalist when we started.
Yes!
How did I do?
Oh, you did so well. So if you decide to change careers, you can always join us on stage.
And people often say, I've got a Discord. Say the truth. It was beautiful, huh?
If you have it, I didn't pick it today.
So you hear, I might change my career. Then it will be Hope being backed by... And do you know Hope is Tariro?
It's Tariro. We have the same name.
The two Tariros. Okay, let's go back to your musical career, Hope. You spoke about how you love to preserve our culture. And you spoke about how it started with the book cafe. When you then penetrated the market, often we hear female musicians saying, it was tough. I struggled to eventually be known, to be who you are now. How has been the road?
Yeah, it is tough. I do agree with those women, but I also believe it's tough even for men.
Yeah.
And it might be tougher for women, but then I also believe there's a verse in Corinthians that says, God doesn't give you a bite that's too big for you to chew. So there's a reason God made you female, and perhaps one of the reasons is for us to create further platforms for younger females who come after us to fix what's not correct currently so that it doesn't stay the same forever. But I like to believe that whatever challenges we face as women, whether they're 10 times more than the challenges that men face or not, but still whatever it is, it was designed within your purpose, and that's why God made you a female in this time, not in the eras before when women couldn't vote, not in the eras later when God knows what women will be able to do then. Yeah, it all falls within your purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we are looking at Hope, the Mbira musician, are you a traditionalist? Where I'm coming from, I'm looking at where there is that divide between African traditional religion and Christianity. Where does Hope fit in there?
That's an interesting question that is often asked, especially now that I am doing this album of hymns on Mbira. I was born and socialized Christian, and as far as I'm concerned, that has worked in my life. Why fix what's working?
Yes.
At the same time, as I grew older also and started playing Mbira, I've been exposed to a lot of things to do with our culture.
Yes.
I've met Mbira gurus who are deep in our culture,
Yes.
who will teach you things about our culture that you didn't even know existed. So I appreciate both.
Yes.
For sure, I believe it would be wrong for us to believe that our ancestors were 100% wrong in what they were doing, in all their practices. We have a lot to learn from
Yes.
how life was back then. And then whether one chooses to be 100% Christian or not, that's up to them. But completely rubbishing our culture is very wrong.
Yes.
Personally, I am Christian, and there are many of our traditional values, let's say habits, that I also follow because they are good for my health, for the environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And looking at Hope as the musician,
Yeah.
you spoke about the love for art. Unpack that for us.
I am art through and through. Any other things come second. I believe-
Really?
Yes, I believe that is my calling.
Wow.
When God was designing me, He made that so perfect in me. It's one of the things I do with ease. You know how people say when you're choosing a career, it should be something that's fun to you.
Yes.
So that even though it's work, it never
Feels
strains
like
you.
it's work, yeah.
Yeah, even if it stresses you, but it doesn't strain you.
Exactly.
That's me. I consider it my calling because I'm just so comfortable in it. I feel fulfilled practicing it. And I'm always so very happy when I meet people who say, oh, when I was in hospital, your album was my word. I read your book and it did this for me. For me, it's a calling first.
Yeah.
So it's who I am first because it's kind of what God designed me for here on earth. I always like to look at earth as a puzzle.
Wow.
And all of us have a piece to fill in there. If you find your purpose and you are serving in it,
Yes.
you're calling, you're gifting, you're serving in it, then you're doing your utmost, you're doing your best, you're being you. That's me and that.
Yeah, so this art, it's which art? Because when you say art, Hope, I'm thinking of kudraw.
Broad. Yeah, exactly.
Kudraw, kukala, kuita
Paint,
painting.
stone sculpture. Yes, in many ways, that is what we know as art primarily. Although any other art form is still
Yes.
called an art, the art of music. And a lot of us musicians are still called artists.
Yes.
I am art through and through. So before I went to Zimbabwe College of Music to study music, I actually studied fine art first. So I'm a visual artist also. Although I haven't tapped into that professionally, but I do a lot of visual art. I did graphic designing while I was there at school.
Wow.
And I do a lot of my graphic designing also, or at least I'm deeply involved. And then my first album, I recorded it with money we made designing clothes
Wow.
for the Chiwoniso Maraides. We were designing for Dudu Manenga also back then
Really?
when we were in music school. Yeah. And then I recorded my first album. So nearly all art. Art is art, yeah.
And I'm looking at how your headgear, that's the artistic Hope who did that.
Exactly, yes. That's the art.
And when we are speaking about Women's Month, celebrating women, when we are looking at Hope, as they talk with Tariro, there are aspects of you that we really picked and we admired. One of which is how you are preserving and proud of your own culture. But we would want to hear if somebody says to you, Hope, what should we celebrate?
This Women's Month.
Yes.
This Women's Month, my gospel would be, we have Women's Month every year in March. And
Indeed. Let's
Indeed.
just take a short break and then we'll be back. And then you'll share with us what should we celebrate. And in that same vein, would want to hear Hope singing the usual Hope songs and not the gospel. And
gospel
hoping that I can still be a backing vocalist. Join us after this short break. Welcome back. We continue with our discussion, our celebrations, and today we have Hope Masike. And this program, like I said, it's coming to us with support from Net One, your world in one. Hope, you were talking about what we should celebrate.
Celebrate this Women's Month. Personally, I am celebrating the women who have inspired me this Women's Month. So from March 1 up to the end of March, I'm going to be posting about women who have inspired me in the different ways.
Yeah.
And then I also think every March should be a reminder for us to celebrate each other as women,
Yes.
whether it's March or not. There's a lot of common talk, or there was a lot of common talk about PhD, pull her down
pull her
syndrome.
down, yes.
I don't believe in that. And I think every day we should be the pure example of the non-existence of that. Celebrating each other is so, so important.
Yes.
The Bible talks about it. It's an important aspect of life, celebrating each other, saying good things to each other, giving each other good vibes. And I think as women, we really, really need that even outside of March.
Yes. Indeed, as women, even outside of March, we need to be celebrating each other. And this is our time to really show the world that pull her down syndrome, if it used to exist, we need to do away with it. And really celebrate each other and be there for each other. Let's talk about Hope, the writer.
Oh, yes. Where to begin?
Yeah, total package, eh? When they say dynamite comes in small packages. This is one dynamite that we are celebrating.
So I have 4 books to my name now. The first one I published in 2020, just before COVID lockdowns began. Because then I made quite a lot of income from online sales from that book. And that was good because then COVID happened. This first book is talking about women relations with the world and women-men relations. When I wrote this book, I had fibroids and I was really now seriously considering surgery to remove them. So I was going through a lot of women-related issues, and one of the ways that helped me to deal with it was journaling it. Out of journaling it, then there were beautiful poems too. That's my first book. The second one, then I wanted to write in Shona. I was like, people do not have as big a reading culture as before social media. And then I'm like, let alone Shona. I was talking to some of my younger friends, asking them to read Shona, and it was ndakava, ndikafamba. I'm like, oh boy, what am I going to write about in Shona that people would love to read about? So that gave birth to my second book, Zeva Vezera, Shona Erotic Poems.
Wow.
I wrote that book in the voice of a tete. I did proper research with gurus in our culture, and then I wrote the book to give spice to in O level when we were doing Shona Zainze Mugudza. Then my third book is called Die With Me. This one was released last year, in fact. And these are spiritual / horror poems. They are discussing the space between, this confused space between someone who is Christian and then also we call it ATR, our African traditional religion, as we were discussing before. So that confused space, when you try this and that and this and that, the horrors of that confused space are discussed in this book. And it's proper horror. I used to be crazy about horror films. So that was a nice way of also expressing that. And then my fourth one, which we released this year, just this February, is about love, inspired by Song of Solomon. And it's called Our Sacred Place.
Wow.
Yeah.
So musically, what can we expect?
Musically, I have an album coming out in a few days.
Really?
Next month,
Yeah.
on the 28th of March. And this album is one of my favorites, I think. I love experimenting, and I love sitting in what is happening in my life, learning from it, and I say making bag out of it.
Wow.
So I grew up with Christian hymns, and I realized also a lot of people know hymns, especially our generations going up. We know hymns. Many people can sing them. In my concerts, when I sing one hymn, it's easy to get everyone singing along.
Yes.
But at the same time, there are also a lot of people who love mbira,
Yeah.
mbira music. Some of them love the traditional aspect of it, the deep cultural aspect of it. Some of them just resonate to it because it's our roots.
Yes.
Sometimes that just happens. So bringing the two together is what this album is about. I am playing gospel hymns on mbira, and it's been fun. I am sure you're going to enjoy the album.
Which hymns did you pick on this one?
Ooh, that's the other problem, because there's so many
of them.
amazing hymns. So there are some, from the top of my head, some very common ones. Mwari muri zuva redu, ndinoshamiswa kwazvo, ishendinzwe nekufara. And then the album is titled Anotida, from the hymn Mumwe ariko pamusoro anotida. Yeah, hymns like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're parting short to Zimbabweans before you give us our last song. What message would you give to Zimbabweans, especially when we are talking about this is a month that we are celebrating women?
So I'll just go back to one Shona saying, to Mushamkadzi, and I'll sing a song that says that also. Mushamkadzi means houses have personalities, and the house will take the personality of the mother of the house. If she is happy, the house is a happy home. If she is not happy, the house is a sad home. And the song says if the mother is sad, depressed, the whole house takes that personality. What happens to the children?
Yes.
What happens to the husband? So it is important to have a happy mother at home.